And support for WMNF comes from listeners like you and the Times Festival of Reading on Saturday, November 11th. The festival brings authors writing about today's compelling topics and most read fiction for discussions about their books. This year, the Times Festival of Reading will be at the Palladium in St. Petersburg. More information at festivalofreading.com. That's one word, festivalofreading.com.
Well, I could have been an actor, but I wound up here. I just have to look good, I don't have to be clear. Come and whisper in my ear, give us dirty laundry. Kick 'em when they're up, kick 'em when they're down. Kick 'em when they're up, kick 'em when they're down.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. This is, this is Down and Dirty. I'm Mario Nunez with my co-host.
Good morning, Mario. John Dingfelder.
I got that frog in my throat still, man. But, I'm so upset that I was not able to be here last week. The conversation was very, very good. I think you covered a lot of ground, and I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
And we're still, listen, things are not getting any better. Things are getting perhaps even a little worse. We that's a commentary for 3 shows. We can do 3 shows with the things that are going on. State of Maine, Syria. Breaking news is usurping breaking news now.
Yeah.
And everything is breaking news.
Yeah, we could have had 3 or 4 hours talking about the Mideast last week.
And
we missed you. We missed both of you guys.
Thank you. Because Jason
I will admit, I for the very first time, I was happy to not be here. I was having a great time on vacation. Don't hate me.
He would have had a difficult time with that. The whippersnapper.
I missed you so badly.
I know.
You weren't even thinking of me.
You're all out of love. You're so lost without me.
There we
but
go.
You knew
Air
I was
supplies.
right.
Hit me with a little Air Supply reference right off the top.
We go. What's going on today, Mario?
Well, we've got Nick Stocco with us. Nick Stocco, for those of you that might not know, he's the president of the Tampa Firefighters Local 754, and we've got a lot of questions and probing questions, and some maybe not so probing, but I think interesting questions that a lot of people who aren't familiar with the workings of a firehouse. What it is that a firefighter does. These are arguably the most important first responders in our community. Yeah, we always need the guys to show up with the firearms to maybe quell disturbances, blah, blah, blah.
And then the firefighters union that's, steps up for the brothers and sisters out there in the firefighters who are busy, doing
saving lives,
doing their jobs.
Right.
And
an incredibly difficult job.
Then you get guys like Nick and his board, who meet with the administration, meet with city council, and try and make sure everything's fair and that their people are protected.
Tip of the spear for sure.
We're going to have some interesting conversations. We will be taking your phone calls at 813-239-9663. We have an email. What's that, Mario?
DJ@WMNF.org. And you can text us, always text us at 813-433-0885. If you know someone who's a firefighter, if you have experienced yourself as a firefighter, a family member, this would be a good time to call them.
So yesterday
I let them know.
Yesterday I had experience with firefighters.
Yes, you did.
Oh my God!
Shall we?
On North Florida Avenue, Nick, you might have heard about this. I'm sure it was kind of a big deal within the department. North Florida Avenue, there was a gas leak right there in front of Rooster and Till, which happens to be about a block from my house.
Protect my restaurant.
That's right.
And my barbershop, frankly.
One of your haunts there. But anyway, so literally the firefighters came knocking at my door pretty urgently and said, "You must leave your house." And I said, "Well, okay, give us a few minutes." They said, "No, you must leave now." My wife says, "What can I take? I need to take boxes and boxes of photographs." I said, "No, honey, we got to go." So I said, "Okay, sir." I said, "Where can we drive to?" They said, "No, you can't drive your car because this possible spark would take out the whole city block." So anyway, for the next 4 hours, we were sitting in a restaurant nearby waiting for the all clear. But Tampa firefighter was there. Tampa police was there. Hillsborough County, actually, special unit was there. And Tico Gas finally showed up to turn off the
It's pretty amazing to watch the crew when they get there. The very highly professional, highly trained crew knowing exactly what they need to do under certain circumstances. There was not too long ago, maybe a couple of months back, that we were attending an afternoon soiree in one of the backyards right there in the neighborhood as well.
That's right.
And it's funny because there was a wafting smell of smoke in the air, but it didn't
And then
take...
all of a sudden it got real heavy, right?
No. And I'm very olfactory sensitive. So for me,
Olfactory sensitive.
That's right, young man. Look it up. So the reality is, and it helped me in my career on the airplanes, working as a flight attendant, because when you got to activate all senses in certain situations, firefighters are no exception. And I noticed the smell of smoke. But immediately I thought, okay, that's not no barbecue smell. These are not burkettes and nobody's roasting weenies here. And sure enough, within just a couple of minutes, the smoke became more and more dense. The smell became more acrid and dark. And we gravitated towards the street, and before too much longer,
Two doors down.
Two doors.
Would you say you were in a zone of danger?
Less than 100 feet from a house that was fixing to go ablaze. I might say that because under the house, in that little area below the house, and these are houses in Seminole Heights, there was a smoldering fire that was. And the funny thing is, the owner of the home was in the house sleeping. She worked nights, so she was not up and about. But her pet tortoise in the backyard was, and he knew there was danger, because homie had already left the backyard. He was working his way up the street.
Funny.
And of course...
those turtles, they really make their way.
Absolutely.
Tortoises.
He was a tortoise.
I don't want to misgender the turtle.
Thank you. So we have the firefighters starting to show up, and before you know it, the gang's all here. And they're in full gear, and they're coming out of there, and
they put it out fast.
They put it out, and they're crawling under the house with their tanks on and their breathers. It was pretty impressive to see.
So speaking of which, Nick, I'm sure you're familiar with this. It's National Fire Prevention Month, and we're going to talk about that. It's also First Responders Week, and we'll talk about that too. Jason, you got anything for us before we get into the meat of our...
Are we gonna get a little down and dirty this morning?
Go for it, man.
I mean, so I'll say this. I think John and we're both aware of what we've seen on social media from a certain disgruntled, bitter old man who's grumbling about this station and this studio. And I mean, I'll say just frankly, in my limited...
What does his name rhyme with?
Gleason.
There you go, Jackie Gleason.
To the moon, Alice. I mean, I'll just say...
So long, pal.
I just, to be, so bitter at that you think that this place should be, defunded effectively. I think this... WNF is an institution of this community for good reason. I'm really, really proud to be here, and I'll sort of leave it at that. I mean, if people want to be bitter about things, that's on them.
Yeah. This particular rhyming person with Gleason is an old friend of mine. Actually, almost sort of related, not by blood, but anyway, and I feel bad because there's a lot of bad blood going back and forth. But he is threatening to try and get the station defunded in terms of the state funds and any other government funds that the station might get. So I just want to give listeners out there a heads up. That what do they need to do, Mario?
Probably need to call the station, probably voice their
support,
approval and support for the station.
And then if it gets to the legislature...
We need to mobilize. We need to go ahead and get that bus, or that 2 buses or 3 buses, or drive your vehicles and meet on the steps and carry your signs and let everybody know the importance of this. It's funny because that person that you're referring to, I believe, had a show here not that long ago, if I'm not mistaken. I thought that was the case.
Had a show, got canceled. I'm not saying that that's why he's taking off. He feels very passionate about the Israel thing and feels that the station is anti-Israel. I don't believe the station is anti-Israel. I think the station tries to be balanced. And they have on some shows that might lean a little bit one way, some shows that lean a little bit other way. Last week we showed on this show that we were totally neutral, and we had one person from both sides of the aisle. And
nobody died.
Nobody
got hurt. I saw the picture afterwards.
Just let's be clear.
Everybody looked good.
Nobody died.
But anyway, so it's a little premature to go to Tallahassee right at this second, but...
We just need to have our antenna up. That's all.
Yeah,
we need to be aware.
Protect the station. Protect what it means to this community. It's a reflection of the community.
Thank you, Jason.
And a wonderful asset. Thanks, Jason. So what do you got, boss?
What do I got?
Yeah, what's been stuck in your craw this week? So much.
I hate to be Debbie Downer, but that... gun control just keeps popping up, and
we don't have time to talk about that. We don't have time to talk about that. That's a mental health issue.
Every couple of weeks, we get an incident like this, and this one is crazy. You don't think of Maine as a place where this would happen.
Yeah, the time to talk about that is not now. When is it then? Can I ask you, when is it?
So you're being sarcastic?
Of course I am.
That went,
Look at
right,
that.
The sarcasm is dripping off this microphone.
went right over my head.
Nope.
So anyway, that Maine thing is just nuts. The guy, a month or two ago, he's at West Point training people.
Well, he's a gun specialist. He knows how to handle that weapon.
Yeah, that makes it even scarier. But anyway, he also has had mental health issues, and he's the type of person that shouldn't be carrying guns, shouldn't be allowed to.
And we all know, because we've been seeing the reports, the state of Maine is one of the most liberal when it comes to, they don't have any background checks. They don't have any restrictions. You can there's concealed carry without permit. I mean, they're as liberal as it can be with regard to firearms. Yet, we don't have time to talk about it.
All right, you're up next. What do you got?
I'm just, the world is spinning crazy. I'm trying my best to stay as positive as I can, and those people that know me well enough know that, man, I'm the last guy out. You know what I mean? I'm going to be there until there ain't no there, and we're getting close to there ain't no there. I mean, in Syria last night, and every time you're watching the news and they come back from a commercial, you hear that music, dun dun dun, breaking news. Everything is a breaking news story, and it's super, super heavy. I'm just wondering, man, and I'm not an end times person. I don't believe in that, so to speak, that, I think Mother Earth is probably going to handle this the way she knows how, by sloughing us off like the ingrates that we are. And that's the way this is going to end. It's going to take time, but there's going to be suffering. And I've got a new granddaughter, and you've got new grandbabies too. And there's a lot of young people in this world that we need to protect and make sure they have an opportunity to experience the life that we've enjoyed a little bit, right? So, but man, it is tough times right now.
So
Everything.
Your message today is save the planet.
My message today is, and hug each other and stop being so mean to each other, because ain't nobody getting out of this bad boy alive, number one. And the last suit you wear, Mr. D, ain't going to have no pockets in it. You know why? Because you ain't taking squat with you, brother. So the best thing you can do is just be kind and caring and love the people you're close to right now, because that's where it starts. And like MJ told us, that would be Michael Jackson, not the MJ in the morning guy. That would be Michael Jackson. He told us, look, the man in the mirror. That's the guy. It starts with the man in the mirror.
If we weren't tied to our microphones, I'd come over and hug it out with you.
I need it. But we'll wait till after the show.
So listen, let's repeat that call-in number. I apologize. I did not take any calls last week because we were too intense into the conversation. But today, we want to hear from you, 813-239-9663. By the way, we were a little bit short on our fundraising goal a few weeks ago. So you still have a chance to go into the website and hit our tip jar with a little bit of contribution.
If you like what we're doing here, and we're going to continue to do this, and hopefully you'll like us even more as we continue, show a little love and just...
As Mario says, show a little love.
The twos and fews, they add up.
Have a little love in your heart.
They add up. Jackie DeShannon.
There you go.
All right, so do we have a little song to usher in our guest today?
Indeed.
That is the great Ohio Players.
All right.
Had the occasion to see them live, Mr. Johnny.
At every party that the firefighters have, do you guys play that, Nick?
Yes, we do.
That's beautiful.
And
There we go.
It's typically at the request of the firefighters. They're the ones that want to hear it.
Maybe
Give the people what they want.
Maybe the wives, too.
Especially the Tampeños. This is Mr. Nick Stocco, again, the president of Tampa Firefighters Local 754, and we are privileged and honored to have him here in studio with us. And we're going to go easy on him only in one regard, because he admitted this is his first radio appearance. You got a great presence. You got a great voice, Papa. Lean in.
Well, good morning.
And we might do some of it in Spanish, because rumor has it that this gentleman here, and I'm meeting him this morning, eres uruguayo?
Now, Mario, I didn't think you were going to tell everybody that, but
Here it
yes,
is.
that is correct.
I love it.
Nací en Uruguay, entonces capaz que podemos hablar un poquito en español.
Si es necesario, seguro que sí.
God, you
And
speak
there it
really
is. And lean into your microphone, baby, because this is going to get good.
I want to say thank you all, actually, to the crew here, you guys, for having me today. it's truly a privilege and an honor to represent the Tampa Firefighters Union, and thank you for having me.
Of course. Firefighters, listen, a group of my high school mates, when they gravitated towards that because of the honorable job that it is, and a lot of my pals, a lot of my high school buddies, graduated. Neighborhood pal of mine rose through the ranks, Captain Bibiloni. He retired a few years ago. Cookie, he's a dear friend of mine.
What was that relative we ran into?
The Martinez brothers. The relative. Well, that's next gen. These guys are coming off the scrolls now. Rick Acosta and so many more Jefferson High School cats. And my cousin's oldest son, Nelson Garcia Jr., who I think is at Station 1, and I think he's ascending through the ranks now as well. It's a big deal for
you. You would have been a good firefighter.
I don't know.
No, I think so.
Well, I would have been able to get to the...
You got the enthusiasm.
And I was pretty strong, weight in proportion to height and pretty strong for my size, so I would have been able to handle all that. But that
crawl through those tunnels.
Crawl space is no problem because I'm a little guy. But
I can't do that.
No, you would have been outside going, Mario, are you okay?
My butt would be stuck.
That 100-foot test on the ladder thing, I don't know that I would have done so well on that.
I think you would have been fine.
All right, Nick. Thank you for the confidence.
I watch him out over there at the training facility by 34th Street dump, and I'm sitting in line, so I watch for like a half hour. And I'm very, very impressed. Very impressed with the training and everything that goes into it. It is First Responders Week and National Fire Prevention Month. And we are thrilled to have you here, Nick. What is going on in the world of firefighters? How'd you get to be a firefighter?
Great question. As we talked about beforehand, I spent majority of my young life over in New York and Long Island on West Babylon.
New York.
Yeah, New York.
I was across the river in New Jersey.
So we were competitors, but yeah.
I love that.
And we met in Manhattan.
and now we're friends.
And we all love the Knicks.
And now we're friends. But the community in the West Babylon was a volunteer fire station. And the firehouse there, depending on the holiday, whether it was Easter or Christmas, they would have events where the community would come to the fire station. For Easter, the firefighters would cook pancakes for the community. They would hide the eggs for the kids. And then on Christmas, they would have Santa, one of the firefighters would dress up as Santa, slide down the pole with a big old gift bag and be able to share that with the kids. So I have several experiences with the fire station growing up. And ever since the age of 5 or 6, I just knew I always wanted to be a firefighter.
That was always your Halloween costume, right?
Every nightmare and dream, too.
Captain's hat, axe, fire crash axe.
Yeah.
Of course.
Those volunteer fire stations up north are amazing. My little town in North Jersey had the same thing. We had it was a small town, 40,000 people. We had, I think, 4 different stations around town. I don't know how many guys and women, in each station, all volunteers. It was crazy when that siren would go off, and I'm sure it was the same in your town. The siren would go off all over town, and then you better get off of the road because people are jumping in their cars from whatever they're doing, and they're flying down the street, getting dressed, and meeting at wherever the fire was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what they generally would do for Christmas is they would... one of the firefighters would dress up as Santa. He would sit on the front bumper of the fire truck and hand out candy canes to the whole community.
Up and down the street?
Up and down the streets. But typically that siren went off every day at noon also. It was to tell everybody that it was lunchtime. The whole town, the whole community would hear that siren wail. Yeah.
I think firefighters have always had a very special place
in calendars.
Well, yeah, that too. But in our cities, in our municipalities, kind of maybe even a little bit more than the police officers, because there was always a little tension with the police when they would show up, even in the early days. Now even worse. But you didn't have that with the firefighters, because when the firefighters come blasting through, they're here to do one thing, man. They're here to save your building and save your life, and that's it.
That's right.
The cat up the tree, they'll get that too if they need to. But it's funny when they roll up behind you in the streets and you hear the sirens coming, dude, just get out of the way.
There is no song called F the Fire Department.
There you go.
Just consider this.
There you go.
We can start from there.
Yep. I think the honor and the respect has always been provided, and rightfully so.
Yes.
So in regard to National Fire Prevention Month, I'm sure you're probably out in the schools, and you and your folks are out in the schools, out in the community, talking to people. If you had 1 or 2 messages to people on how to protect themselves, what's your message?
Sure. absolutely one of the leading causes is residential house fires, saving lives, smoke detectors. We can't tell you how many times we go into houses and we hear the beeping coming from the smoke detector because
The battery's low.
the battery's low,
Chirp,
or the
chirp.
detector's bad, and it's being aware of those things and those key indicators that will help get everybody out of the house. And the other one would be education within the family, making a plan, having a plan when you leave the house, and for the adults, go get CPR certified.
Yeah.
Early defibrillation really saves lives.
Right, and you guys, we're talking fire, but you guys are all about rescue as well, about basically ambulance type service. You show up in your big red, whatever they call them. What's the name of that?
Well, there's rescues, fire
The
rescues,
rescues,
which are the transporting units, and then there's fire trucks that carry the same qualified.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that
In my mom's building, you guys are the first ones there. I mean, you're showing up in the building, you're resuscitating, you're transporting. You did it with my dad too. Rest in peace. You guys are amazing in that regard.
Oh, thank you that we were able to provide that care to you. But different from the volunteer fire departments up north, all the fire departments down here are all paramedics. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a firefighter and a paramedic, so it can be there at your house within those 4 minutes by industry standard.
So if you just tuned in, we've got Nick Stocco, president of the Tampa Firefighters Local 754, and we do have a phone call coming in, Mario. And before you do, Mario, keep calling in, 813-239-9663. What do you got, Mario?
We see you there, Mike. We're going to come to you now, Mike in Sarasota. Mike, you're on the air.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Certainly.
Let me get a speakerphone.
Yes, sir.
I came in a little bit after the beginning of your show, and I heard you say that somebody was complaining about WMNF's coverage of the Mideast. Was that a current staffer? I didn't catch the name. Who was that?
Well, we're not going to give the name, but if you go on social media, you probably will see it.
There's no reason to give the name. I don't
No,
think.
but it's somebody who used to have a show here. His show is pretty much pro-Israel and anti-Palestine, I would say. Ultimately, his show got canceled. Now he says that this station is too pro-Palestine, and he's aggressively saying that he wants to defund the station and take away any government support. The station doesn't get that much to start with, but he wants to defund it anyway.
So,
Okay, now are his initials Craig Kopp?
no, I don't believe so.
No, it's not him.
No.
Okay.
But
All right,
but did you have any questions? Did you have any questions today for our
Let me conclude with just one statement. I was a leader in the fight to remove Craig Kopp, and I'm sad to see that he's got a show on USF these days because Craig Kopp tried to fire Rob Laura, and I hope he's listening to this. My name is Mike Lachey, and I think that's an example of a very pro-Zionist person allowed to be on the media. And
All right.
my
All right.
final comment, the comment is that these people who are trying to get rid of people like MNF for reporting on these are the first to complain about cancel culture. And now they're here trying to implement cancel culture on WMNF.
Well, we
Thank you, Mike.
appreciate the call. We're back to firefighters now, but
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So I got just a quick question, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier. Nick, you said the firefighters up north, when they dress as Santa, they come sliding down the pole with a bag of gifts. And, that's the thing that we look for from our firefighters. So we can remember those of us that are of a certain age here, either Tampa police, sometimes the firefighters got involved. They would dress appropriately as Santa Claus and elves and so forth. And they would be on Braddock Street back in the 60s when Braddock Street would dress itself out for Christmas. And they would be handing candy canes
Braddock
out.
Street in West
Tampa.
What Tampa?
In West Tampa. Always doing just wonderful work, community outreach.
Community work, yeah.
And now it's more important than ever, and we're grateful that you guys do that. Do you guys still use the pole? I got to ask.
There are a couple stations. One downtown. That station does, I believe, it's about 30 to 32 feet.
You can get up some speed coming down that pole.
Yeah. It's bad when you go down with wet hands. And as firefighters, we love to cook. We have to clean up after we cook. And if you're doing dishes, you better dry off your hands before you slide down the pole.
So when I was
Those are your breaks, correct?
Yeah.
When I was on, speaking of cooking, when I was on city council a while back, I can't help but laugh about this. Do you remember this, Nick? When the the station down there in Port Tampa, and they kept complaining about their kitchen. We need a kitchen remodel. And next thing we know, they went to a fire, and they ended up having a grease fire in their kitchen, and they burned down their kitchen.
The station?
The station.
It
One
was-
way or the other, they got a new kitchen. They got a new kitchen.
Yeah, it's almost like some homeowners up north. You got to follow the insurance claim. to get that.
Yeah, that was classic. But on a serious note, one thing that does make me a little bit sad is so I served on Tampa City Council under Mayor Pam 2003 to 2010, and the issues about the shortages that the firefighters faced. Trucks were getting old and beat up. Stations were getting tired and needed remodeling. Women firefighters, and there weren't that many of them back then, but more now, and good for that. Were complaining that there wasn't women's bathrooms or there was inadequate women's locker rooms and that sort of thing. So I come back to City Council in 2019, and sure enough, all those issues are still there.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was very, very sad to me because it was almost like, well, we all, everybody says, oh, first responders, firefighters, we love you, but we're not putting our money where our mouth is. Is that correct, Nick?
Well, I could tell you that, a lot of those issues may still arise. Generally, it all encompasses into one thing, and that's the industry standard, right? In these fire stations, in these firehouses, we talk about gender-neutral restrooms, or even, like the health and safety is these fire barriers. These trucks, they're big diesel engines, big diesel motors, and every time they turn on, they put out that fume and those exhausts, those gases that go out into the bay, eventually make its way through the living quarters, and that's what we're sleeping in. And then we're sleeping in those, the 1950s, 1970s. We have two stations that are greater than 100 years old. And I actually asked this question when you came to interview for us. I asked it to another city council member, and I asked, majority of our stations are from the 1950s. We can buy a fire truck. It might be here in a year or two, but how do you buy a station? How do you get that here in a year or two? And we're still having those conversations today. And that's what the firefighters pay their union dues for the union to go up there and advocate and have their political connections, as well as, advocate for the wages and stuff. But we did get partition walls in that 2017, 2018 range. There was a directive for specific restrooms to be utilized by females, but it definitely wasn't enough. And as we move forward with times, we're even finding that male or female restrooms may not be the way to go either. How about gender-neutral specific restrooms? A restroom is a restroom.
It is. It is.
Especially
truly.
within our fire stations. So we're going to continue to advocate for those things. I know funding has been a huge point of contention. We look at some numbers from 2018 and 2019, and some of the numbers being presented even as nearly as yesterday. We wonder, how are we getting these numbers? And, we're going to continue to advocate for our firefighters as well as the community, because those fire stations also serve as community hubs. That's how I
Yes.
got started.
Yes.
Public education areas that the community can come. We can do demos. You can do open houses.
It's where people drop off a box of kittens and or a baby.
Exactly.
No,
It's a safe place.
I'm not making. Why is the young man laughing? It's inappropriate. But I'm
totally, especially since he got dropped off at the fire
Thank
station.
you.
I mean, I was going to say, this is
Thank
my
you.
origin story. It's why I became a supervillain.
All right, in all seriousness.
So if you're just joining us now, you're listening to Down and Dirty with Mario Nunez and John Dingfelder on WMNF Community Radio 88.5. Callers, we see you there, and we're going to come to you right about now. Thank you for calling. Thank you for holding. Since we have a few callers, please make your question or your comment brief, and we're going to come to Bert in Clearwater presently. Bert, you're on the air with us. Good morning.
All right, good morning. And I want to say I'm a retired fire lieutenant. My father was a volunteer for 45 years. My mom was in the first aid squad up in New Jersey. I was a FMBA 33, which is really good. And I just appreciate you guys are talking about firefighting. They need to make sure that everybody's safe. And what we did up there, we had, instead of 3 shifts, we had 4 shifts. We called them groups. And it was a 42-hour work week. and it worked a lot better. I think that would be something that you probably know about it from being up there in New York, but it helps from burnout. So, but I appreciate it, and over the years I've been exposed to.
Hey, Bert, I'm just curious, Bert, what city or what town in New Jersey?
Rahway.
Rahway. Okay, you were about halfway down. Halfway down, we probably met at the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, the Jersey.
As one does.
Exit 11.
That's it.
But Nick, it's good to have unions, and we know the importance of that. But the 4-day, the 42-hour work week, then guys, what it is, one shift would work 10-hour days, 8 to 6, and then the other shift would come in at 6 at night and work till 8 in the morning.
All right, Nick, let's hear your response to that, and then we'll take another call.
Thank you so much, Bert, for your call. We
Thank
really
you, Bert.
appreciate you.
Thanks for your service.
Bert, good morning. First, I want to say thank you to your service and your family's service. The fire service is a tradition, history-based, and I want to thank you and your family for all your service. We continue to advocate for less work hours in the work week. Right now, we work on a 3-shift platoon, and as we know, it is taxing on our hours. We look for further contract negotiations to go to that 4th platoon system in hopes to lessen the work hours for our firefighters to make that work-life balance more healthier for our firefighters. So I appreciate that, and we actually do have Pasco County up north. They did go to a 4-platoon system, and they're in current contract ratification over that. So that's something that we may explore in the near future. Thank you.
Very cool.
So I just got a message here from my former neighbor who says, talking to my boy Stocko, said this is Mark Spear, who was a former, and I hated to lose him as a neighbor because what a great guy.
I was just texting him, and he said, I'm confused how you're live and texting at the same time. Well, when you get hired with somebody as good as him, and his last name and my last name, we did everything together as partners.
You're right next to each other, Spear and Stocko, right?
And that's what firefighters do. They stick together. Mark and I have been very good friends since, and I'm very thankful for his leadership within the firefighters.
And was his father not a firefighter as well?
We talked about history and family.
There you go. I mean, there's a strong connection there. I mean, my cousin, her husband, Luis Fernandez, was a firefighter in Hillsborough County, rose to the ranks of captain. His son is also now following in his footsteps. So, I mean, it's a great time to be talking about firefighters. Gary in St. Pete, we're coming to you now. Gary, you're on the air. Thank you for your call.
I was watching the city council a couple of months ago, and first of all, Nick, you're a terrific advocate for the union. Very persuasive, always with fantastic information for city council. The concern that I had, you were talking about the lack of units that can respond to issues that might happen at Tampa Stadium at Ray J, and the fact that there's only one ambulance that's on site there, and it's dedicated to the NFL, and not to anybody in the stands who might have a heart attack. Could you talk about that problem?
Absolutely. What was your name again?
Gary Gibbons.
Hey, Gary. Good morning.
Thank you for your call, Gary.
Yes, thank you. Every time that there's an event at Raymond James Stadium is the vendor, and the city of Tampa provides them with services. And the city of Tampa provides them with qualified paramedics and fire watch inspectors to provide their services there on site. However, as I mentioned recently at City Council, when people call for us, they generally don't ask us for advice. They like to be taken to the hospital. So as you saw recently, there was 86 calls, I think, at Raymond James during one of the football games. And if every time someone needs to be transported out of Raymond James, they utilize the street units. So the West Tampa station, the Boy Scout West Shore area, the West Shore station, we have to call for their ambulance to take the individuals to the hospital. There is only one transport unit dedicated to the NFL players. And, as we see in the NFL events, there's high contact. And when that unit goes and transports that NFL player, they generally have to wait for another unit for coverage. But that is 100% correct. whenever a guest of Raymond James needs to be taken to the hospital, it comes right out of the taxpayers.
But that doesn't make any sense. Buccaneers have been around forever. So why is this still happening? What's the issue?
I think that's a great question. I can tell you that for other events like the Sunset Music Festival, there's designated transport units for that crowd. That crowd generally takes in 25,000 to 30,000 people, and we have designated transport units on scene for the guests. However, at Raymond James, the unit is just for NFL.
When the crowd can exceed that twice or three times.
60,000.
Something that Tampa Sports Authority needs to address, I'm sure, as well as the Buccaneers and the city. You want to take one more call?
I think we should. I think
we'll
we
jump
should.
back in because I've got a down and dirty question for Nick, but let's take one more call and then we'll do it.
All right, Fran, we're coming to you now, Fran, in Largo. Thank you for being there and waiting patiently. You're on the air.
Oh, thank you. This is kind of on the lighter side, my question here. I watched this show on TV. While it's very entertaining, it's called Chicago Fire, and it's about firefighters and paramedics and men and women. And I'll tell you, the show gets to be like Peyton Place after a while between the men and the women. I just want to know what firefighters think of a show like this. Maybe a lot of people watching these shows believe it, but I just want to know what.
I think that's a great question.
Great question.
I actually think that's a great question,
Fran. Nothing wrong with that question at all. Thank you for your call.
Thank you, Fran.
Great question. So first I want to start out by saying I don't watch much TV.
There you go.
I watch a couple news channels, and that's it. And one is often on repeat all day long, and my significant other yells at me. But no, great question. My significant other, tried to get me to watch this show, Chicago Fire. I said, okay, you got me for about 2 shows. And I watched it, and I was a little disappointed in the stereotypical storyline of whether it was substance abuse or marital issues and personal life things that the firefighters go through. Those things I didn't enjoy because it was very stereotypical. However, I can tell you that the overall family aspect of it and sharing a roof together and responding to calls on trucks and the types of calls that they went to is pretty accurate.
Yeah. I hate to dwell on it, but when I was on council this most recent time, I was trying to focus on mental health for our employees and especially for Tampa Police and Tampa Fire. Because, Nick, I don't need to tell you, there's a lot of PTSD in both departments. You go answering these calls, some of them are tragic, bloody, violent, what have you, and you guys are the first responders. You're there to see it all. And from a PTSD perspective, post-traumatic stress disorder, that's got to be rough. What is the city doing? What is the union doing to address, the potential for that, mental health issues within your crew?
Sure. I could tell you from the union side of it, we partnered up with our state organization, the Florida Professional Firefighters, and we were able to get some legislation passed, the PTSD bill, that would provide coverage and benefits to those that had PTSD claims.
A lot of people probably don't want to admit it either, right? They want to tough it out.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate in the city of Tampa to have an occupational health nurse, and her name is Tiffany Klein.
Yes, she does a great job.
She is our hero. She wears the cape. She is the firefighter savior, but she's only one person, and she's also human. So we continue to advocate for peer support teams that she does have. We do have a behavioral health training session on November 14th, exclusive to the IAFF members, and it was actually a joint invite from St. Pete, our brothers over at St. Pete Local 747. The union works in conjunction with other unions, and from the IAFF level, we support each other. And whether the city wants to help or contribute to some of those, the union is a great source of peer support and family tradition, and hope to get that resource for those
Really,
people.
really important issues. I
Truly.
hope you guys stick with it.
I have a question, and I'm going to read an email first. My question, and I'll come back to it in just a minute, is high rises. Remember that.
Yeah.
But this email that I want to read to you now, I found it interesting how the Union for Walt Disney World firefighters fought against a new oversight board for better pay and better staffing. Could your guest speak on this? It was pretty high profile. Also, what does your guest think about spending hundreds of millions in the new Tampa Service Center on Hannah Avenue? Why not spend those capital improvement dollars for upgrading on city fire stations?
That was one of my questions.
This is
Darn
David,
it.
David Bryan. Thank you for your email.
Darn it, Dave.
Either one of those two questions resonate with you?
Sure. Yes, I can tell you that to the city center, I think it's a great asset to the city. But what that does to the fire union is it tells you that the city is looking outward. They're preparing for the growth. They're preparing to be able to staff the city employees. My question is, what are we doing for the firefighters to be able to prepare for the growth in the city? Just trying to stay within the firefighter union realm with that.
And some of the growth's already here.
Right.
And
so much.
There you go. Thank you for reminding me. Well, I didn't forget. It was just a second ago. But the high rise.
I'm here to help you.
Thank you, John. And I need you, brother. Sometimes I really need you. But we're becoming, much to my chagrin and a lot of others of a certain age in Tampa, a vertical city. And with that comes a lot of challenges.
Don't Miami, my Tampa.
We know Chicago full well. Chicago Fire, we were talking about. New York, of course, the quintessential vertical city in the United States. Talk about a little bit about the challenges, the special challenges with fire and rescue, getting up to those high floors. And you're talking about planning. They're not planning for that part of the aspect, that component. They're just putting in the apartments, and I guess the rescue comes after.
So first on the high rise, right? Firefighters, there's square footage. People don't catch fire. Anything can catch on fire. Electrical fires, whatever it may be. The amount of square footage that we need to protect gets covered by firefighters on our two legs. What happens? The elevator stops to work. So people can't take the elevator. So what do generally people do? We all saw at 9/11, they have to go down the stairwell. What happens all the way up and down the corridor of Bayshore, Gandy? You generally have your more vulnerable population, your 55 and up. And even in downtown, you may have your 55 and up. What do they have a tough time doing? Going down the stairs. So we need more firefighters. Industry standard outlines 43 firefighters to be on scene within 10 minutes and 10 seconds of that incident. As you can imagine, 43 firefighters is about a little over a third of the minimum staffing in the city. And that would deplete one response for a high-rise incident, even if there's no fire, would deplete a third of the city's responses, of the city's resources for firefighters. It's a coordinated attack in both saving lives and putting out the fire. And that takes people. And it is a very high risk, low frequency, but what we need to prepare for the most is those high risk, low frequency events. If you're not preparing for the worst and training for the worst, how are we going to be expected to perform at that level?
I didn't do a great job with mathematics in either junior high or high school. I did it because it was perfunctory and we had to do it to get through it.
You made up for it in grammar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Seriously, who was this man's grammar teacher?
I will ring a bell on that. But the reason I'm saying this, and this is in all seriousness, is those numbers are not sustainable. They're not sustainable, Nick. And, let alone we've got hurricane season, which lasts 6 months here. If we have an event with that, we're done.
Right. And if you think of where those fire stations are, Mr. John, like you were saying, down in the Port Tampa, those fire stations, they need to relocate. So those people relocate to those old stations that are already outgrown and outdone, and that's what we need to prepare for. We need to prepare for the worst of the worst to make sure that we have all bases covered. If we're not able to cover the day-to-day today, then we're not doing our part.
Say nothing for the fact that we've got CENTCOM here too, man. I mean, we got a little bit of a target on our back in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we have a target on our back from Mother Nature.
I didn't say TIA,
Did
but
you say TIA, Raymond James, Midtown, Aquarium, Busch Gardens,
look, man,
Florida Park Zoo,
you're giving
Convention Center?
me the chill bumps because
UT, USF, we talked about earlier.
all densely populated.
So, speaking of densely populated, I have to take issue with
Population
what you
density.
said, Mario. I think going vertical is the way to go because it reduces urban sprawl. If you put
I don't mind that
people
argument.
in a high rise, up and down, from a growth management perspective, I'm all for it. But okay, I promised a down and dirty fireman's question.
Here we go.
With about 10, 12 minutes to
10,
go.
12 minutes
Dale.
to go. We'll probably could take one more call, 813-239-9663. But in the meantime, Nick, I want to express this show's condolences to Tampa Fire. Your family of firefighters had a loss recently, and it resulted in a strange controversy. But let's talk about the loss first, and then go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rest in peace to Jackson Rometta, 7-year-old. It was a drowning incident in the backyard of the family's home, and I want to try to keep the family's privacy as much as possible since it's relatively fresh. However, I will speak on the Rometta family. There are 4 brothers, very well respected, very well known, and as Mario was saying, it's family. It's a tradition, it's history, and it's what we know and what we do. And 4 brothers, 3 are active. 1 is he was a retired captain that's came back to work with us in our prevention bureau. But they're a good group of 4 brothers. 2 of them serves on the Tampa Firefighters Museum's board. We have that museum downtown that everyone enjoys.
Fabulous.
And they lost their child, huh?
Yes, and the captain, one of the captains that's active, lost a 7-year-old, a special needs child to a drowning in the lake. The entire family lives on this lake, and that's generally where they share their family time, is with the kids in the backyard.
So sorry.
Yeah, so it's just very tragic.
So how does that become controversial?
Well, there was, as we mentioned, families and firefighters in history, and what this union does, and this union not just provides for the firefighters but their families. Their firefighter pays the ultimate sacrifice. We then owe it to the families that were with the firefighter. There was a funeral service last Friday in downtown Tampa at the Sacred Heart. And it was a beautiful service. And there were many community leaders there, as well as fire chiefs supporting this Rometta family. And it was it was tough for us. There was a direct order that we weren't allowed to wear our fire department uniform. And no fire department vehicles were allowed to be there. And this is downtown Tampa. This is our backyard. This is our family. This is our area. And it was very tough.
And from your perspective, that came down from the mayor or from the chief or what?
Without it, I'm trying to keep it as much as factual driven as possible. It didn't come from the firefighters. It must have come from the fire administration or above. And
any rationale for that, Nick? Does it make sense to you?
It doesn't make sense to me because for other families, we've done it before. Mark Spear, I believe for his family, the entire staff went to Orlando. We've traveled to Pinellas. We've traveled to other areas to just pay our respects. This was right in downtown.
Yeah, I've been to a few TPD funerals, very tragic, very sad, and there's always a lot of equipment, a lot of public vehicles, even firefighters, in their vehicles show up out of, lost my mic.
No, you're on.
Huh?
You're on.
Yeah, so on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it went weird, and maybe I lost my
Your headset. Plug in your
All
headset.
right. Anyway, I'll keep talking. It's very tragic, and but I don't see any response like that. Now, I will give a little shout out. Or apparently, and you haven't seen it yet. Apparently, the chief responded this morning. Tampa Fire Chief Ms. Tripp responded this morning with an email of her own rebutting what you just said, and she said though the administration did not prevent people from wearing their uniforms, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we can't get into the he said, she said, but it is unfortunate that there's not better communication on an issue like this where I know, listen, everybody's human. The administration's human. You guys are human. On this kind of issue, we really shouldn't be disagreeing.
Sure. Even on Saturday, there was a memorial service at the Tampa Firefighter Museum. And the order carried on to that day as well, that vehicles weren't allowed to go. I had to contact the chief on that one.
Yeah.
And the order ended up being reversed. But I think had the union not contacted those that were contacted, that order would have stood. And that's why you pay your union dues when it matters, when time matters. We don't let personal feelings get in the way of the family or the tradition or the history of the fire service.
No, they've got here, Nick.
It's a brotherhood.
It is a brotherhood and
sisterhood,
and a sisterhood, and they're lucky to have leadership like you, brother, who's going to stand in there and take that charge, because somebody has to. And all good unions need that kind of leadership, lest you would not be a good union. We had one, flight attendant union, pilot union. You can go down the line, and I'm grateful. I can say this. I know I'm grateful, and I think everybody will agree that the unions have been running scared since Professional Air Traffic Controllers Union was busted in 1980, the first official act by St. Ronald Reagan when he took the presidency. But this has been a long period and a long time coming. I think unions are starting to see a little bit of a renaissance, right? A little bit of a comeback.
Truly.
Not all 730 firefighters can have a mic on their on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. And that's what I was elected to do, was be their mouthpiece, be their voice. I'm very fortunate for their support. Very fortunate for the outpouring messages that I get from them, and I work for them.
And it's an elected position, so it's something that you get nominated for. You put your hat in the ring, and then you've got to tell everybody why you want to be the man.
Of the 500 that voted, of the 500 firefighters that voted, 400 checked my box.
Attaboy. Attaboy. Let's ring that bell.
Those
Let's ring that bell.
Tuning in right now, we've got Nick Stocco. He's president of the Tampa Firefighters Local 754.
Muy buen hombre.
And we really appreciate him being here today. So earlier on, we were talking about the needs of the firefighters that are not being met. Yesterday's city council, I know, had discussions with the chief financial officer, with Dennis Rivera, a good guy, talking about how do we find the money. Frankly, I wasn't thrilled that the city was building this $100 million Taj Mahal on Hannah Avenue. When that's the same pot of money, it's the general fund. It's the same pot of money that we need to be spending for firefighting, fire stations, trucks, ambulances, etc. And it didn't get spent that way. So what's the solution down the road? What did Dennis Rivera tell you guys yesterday?
They proposed, and I think Councilman Vieira has really been a champion for us on the public safety master plan, or trying to get some kind of funding in line. They proposed bonding, and I know many are against it, for it, whichever. But I really want to take a close look at those numbers that were presented. It appears as if some of the interest rates didn't match up, as well as for the interest rates at Hannah. So were those numbers inflated for, to deter council from voting and bonding? But
but the city bonds for everything. I mean, right now they probably have 10 or 15 bonds outstanding going back, 15, 20 years. So bonding is not so unusual. Yes, interest rates are higher right now. So is that what they're afraid of?
It appeared that that's what was some of the concern of council, but even with some of the the developers that are coming in, we look at Pasco County, they have a fire tax. Something is a designated funding source. We need a designated funding source, so that way we're not having to fight in the general fund and duke it out in the general fund for whatever the mayor's or council's interest is at that time. We just need a designated funding source.
So real briefly, because we've just got about a minute left, if there's a wish list, one thing at the top of your wish list, what would that be?
Peace and goodwill, fall in bed.
For the firefighters. For the firefighters.
I think John said it.
Okay. All right. Then we'll leave it right there.
And more fire stations.
And more fire
And more
stations
fire
and more
stations.
equipment and more people willing to join
And
the
a
ranks.
partridge in a pear tree.
I'm sorry, I
Because
didn't
we
mean to
need
butt in.
no, because we need our firefighters. Nick, thank you so much for coming
Oh,
in.
thank you guys. Thank you everybody listening in.
And if the opportunity arises, please come back and be with us once again, because give us an update maybe in a few months.
Yeah.
We plan on being
Community
here.
safety
We know you're
master
going to be
plan.
here.
You know, the mayor worked her way up to be chief, and then she became mayor. So who knows? Nick Stocko might be running for mayor soon.
I
We'd like
the
to thank
president
all of our.
union.
There you go. We'd like to thank all of our callers, emailers, and texters today. Special thanks to Irene, our phone screener. On behalf of our engineer and Jason Marlowe, co-host John Dingfelder, I'm Mario Nunez saying salute. Happy days. Stay tuned now for the Skinny with Mitch Perry, Ray Roa, Ben Montgomery. Have a great weekend, everybody, and praise your firefighters.
Be well.
But don't